Hello and welcome to another episode of the Upgrade Your Education Business podcast. I'm your host, Samantha, and today we are diving into something that is always a pretty popular topic, and I haven't done one of these for a while. And I know it feels like a bit of a minefield because for many of us, social media is this thing. It's this thing that we know we need to do and we try and do and we manage to do for a while, but find it really hard to stay consistent. We sometimes find it very noisy, so it's a difficult one. Now, there's no shortage of advice out there about platform updates and the algorithm and what you're meant to do. And sometimes you question whether your effort's even worth it because you have to do so much, it feels, just to get even a small result. Now, as someone who has built 2 businesses on social media organically, but I don't wear that as a badge of honor because I don't think there's anything wrong with paid ads. But as someone who's done that, I am an advocate for social media. I do feel like as a business person, it is worth it. So if you feel the same, or if you want to explore whether this could be the same for you, today I want to specifically focus on how to make sure that it's sustainable. Because like anything, it's only worth it when you do the right things. It only feels sustainable and it only feels like you're getting results if you do the right things. And that's exactly what we're going to tackle in this episode. How can you really refine your social media strategy so that it's effective, it's consistent, and it's tailored to what works for a tutor, all in a way that doesn't take over your life? All right, so before we dive into my tips, I've got a little task for you. I want you to just audit how you feel right now, right this moment, about social media marketing. Is it something that you really love? Is it something that you feel very motivated about right now? Or is it something that always feels like it's weighing on you a little bit? Like, I know I should do it and, oh, I really need to pay attention to it, but you're not feeling very motivated to do it. Is it something that until very recently you felt motivated and now you're going through a dip? So just identify where you're at right now. Maybe it's something that you're scared of and intimidated by. Maybe it's something you haven't tried yet. Maybe it's something you hate. And if you hate it, I presume you haven't pressed play on this episode anyway. So that's your starting point. Just take a moment. If you need to, pause this episode and identify where you're at right now. So that as I go through some of the strategies, some of the tips and techniques, you take from it, you extract exactly what you need based on where you're at right now. So if you're really galvanized, really motivated, you'll use this to refine. If you're not feeling motivated, then you'll take from this what you need to get that motivation. So let's start. The first thing is to choose the right platform. Notice that I said platform, singular, not platforms. Here's why. If you try and focus equally on multiple platforms at the same time, it's a surefire way of social media feeling like it's a full-time job. Also, it's impossible to master every element of that platform and really be present if you're on multiple platforms. You're spreading yourself very thin. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be or can't be on more than one platform at the same time. In fact, it can be really beneficial. But it's really worth hyper-focusing on one at a time. Something I often do is I go in 3-month cycles. So I'll focus on one for 3 months and then I'll keep that going, but I'll properly focus on another one for 3 months, for instance. It's also worth, when you're trying to decide, well, which one should I be on and which one should I focus on? It's worth really thinking about where your target audience are most active, where they're consuming the kind of content that you put out there, where they're looking for people like you. And when you do that, you can really leverage the strengths of that platform because it's coinciding with the people who you want to get in front of. So here are some tips to choose the right platform. Ask yourself, where are your ideal client most active? If you work with parents of younger children, Often platforms like Facebook, Instagram might be best, but of course it also depends on what kind of clients you work with. Are they ultra high net worth? Are they an international client, for example? So that can play a part here as well. If you are working with professionals, let's say you teach other tutors, LinkedIn could be ideal. The other thing to think about is what kind of content, what type of content really aligns with your strengths. So if you love creating videos, then something like TikTok, YouTube could be a good fit, maybe even Instagram, since at the time of recording this, Reels, short videos, are doing really well on there. So use all of that blend, to start with one platform. This is especially great if you're not feeling very motivated or if you're at the beginning stages. Start with one platform and establish a rhythm, and then consider branching out if needed. I've got training for a lot of the main platforms in the Tutors Mastermind. So if you really want to just do a deep dive, understand what the different elements mean and how you can use them, and you're in the mastermind, then just ask me and I'll direct you. And if you're not in the mastermind, head over to tutorsmastermind.com and you'll find the link. So you can branch out if you need to later on, but by narrowing it down, you'll find it so much easier to create content that actually connects with your audience, because you're just focused on the one place and you get a flavor for the style that people like and the things that people respond to on that platform. You'll get an idea for how to use different tools and different features of that platform. My second tip is to actually have a plan. In my mastermind and actually my bespoke one-to-one program, this is one of the most useful tools that we have ever used. It's where we create a 1-year plan, and it's not just content. We also look at other areas like your financial forecasting, when to sell, and so on. But creating a 1-year content plan doesn't mean that you're mapping out every single post for the next 12 months. It doesn't have to be this massive job. Instead, what you're doing is you're looking at this year view and you're setting a structure that allows you to be effective. So you're selling at particular times. You can batch create and you can pre-schedule your content, but because you've planned it according to where you're at in the year, you can also stay really relevant. You can also stay current. I rely very heavily on this. I have a year plan where I know what I'm going to be focusing on at different times in the year, and that really steers my content. And it saves me hours actually, because when I sit down, I do batch create my content. I know exactly what I want to talk about. And I mean, the only thing I don't do it for is this podcast. This podcast, I choose topics based on what I want to talk about or any requests that my clients or people generally have given me. But generally, I tend to batch create all my other content. In fact, as I record this episode, I'm preparing for Christmas and I want my content to go out. In fact, I'm also preparing for January because I want to chill out in the first week of January. So it really helps you stay consistent, stay present. And you're probably wondering, well, how about those more spontaneous posts? You can still do those. If, say, for example, you've set yourself a schedule of 3 days a week, let's just say, you can still stick to that. You can pre-schedule stuff, but let's say something pops into your mind. You can just post that instead and pre-schedule that and replace one of your pieces of content. So here are some steps to create a plan. Map your year based on notable dates and things that are really relevant to your clients. It's really useful if you've got a niche. If you're a bit more general, then you'll have to just plan things according to the academic year. But you can also think about seasonal things that are going on. Then based on that, you can decide, well, what do people need to hear? How are they feeling at this time of year based on who they are and obviously the time of year they're at? So I know my GCSE students are feeling a certain kind of way in January, where they've got their mock exam results and they're in the last stretch to the final exams. They start in May. That's very different to how my year nines are feeling, for example. Then have a look at your calendar and dedicate, let's say, a day or two. And it doesn't mean a full day, but dedicate time block, basically. Time block some time so that you're batch creating content. And you could even do this in stages. So with my podcast, I actually script out the podcast, a few of them, before I start recording. That's my process. With social media, I tend to open Canva, create the images, and then I have a few notes in the comments about what I might write about. That's stage one of my planning. So stage two is just actually scheduling them on whichever platform I'm doing that. And that doesn't take me very long because I've done all the prep work. That's how I like to do it. But maybe you like to do it in one go. Instead of doing the prep, you just schedule the content. So, whatever it is, having a system allows you to ensure that social media doesn't consume your daily schedule while but you can still stay consistent. It just doesn't have to take over your life. And here's an additional little tip. Being present on social media platforms does make a really big difference to your reach, to your visibility, all of that. However, that means being on the platform all the time as well, in theory. What I do is I post on specific days. On the days that I don't post, I consider them my days off social media. So I don't actually go on that platform on my days off if I'm not posting on there. So I do it that way to make sure there's a bit of space so it doesn't get overwhelming, it doesn't get too noisy. And if you're not very experienced with scheduling, like pre-scheduling your posts, there are loads of apps out there. I use Zoho Social, but there's Hootsuite, there's Meta Business Suite, which is free for Facebook and Instagram. There are lots of them, and you can do it natively as well. So on LinkedIn, for example, you can actually pre-schedule your post natively inside the platform. Now, my next tip is to think about repurposing content, but repurpose really wisely. So, whenever I talk about repurposing, I often talk about kind of multiplying content rather than just repeating it. So, a lot of the time, people will repurpose by saying, here's a post, and I'm just going to post it in multiple places at the same time. You can do that. I quite like to vary it up a little bit, but I'm repurposing by recycling the idea. But here's another way to do it. Some of my clients really like this. Have some evergreen content. So, content that's applicable all year round. It's always relevant to your audience. So, it could be something like talking about confidence in your subject, boosting confidence, or, feeling that engagement with a subject. That's relevant all year round. And what you can do is you could repost them. You could repost them as they are or make little tweaks. And you can have that running on a schedule of, I don't know, every 3 months, for example. Like I said, you could change them around or keep them as they are. So these are evergreen content. And then you can use the more spontaneous or seasonal content according to your 1 year plan. Now, when you're thinking about what to post, always think about your analytics and see what kind of content has performed well. Whenever I talk about analytics, look at the thing that matters to you. So if you're trying to get engagement, like lots of likes, then have a look at what got lots of likes. If you're trying to get conversation going, look at content that gave you comments. If you're trying to get clients and make sales, look at the kind of content that created some inquiries and discovery calls, and reuse those. Be really specific, be really intentional. And if you're thinking, well, how do I just repackage an idea? It's really easy. So for instance, let's say LinkedIn or Instagram, you could take a single post and turn it into a carousel. That's where you have several images that you're kind of scrolling across, or turn it into a short video, for instance. Also, what's really useful is to create a content bank. So you could create a folder of your best performing posts, or you can do it on Canva. You can even just gather ideas. Even you can just have a bank of ideas that you dip into. So if you're pressed for time and you want to post something, you'll just have ready to go content. I have ones for sales content for each of the things that I sell that I just dip into if I'm in a real hurry and I haven't got time to plan something a little bit more strategic. So remember that repeating your core messages isn't lazy. It's not something you do to save time, although it does save time. It's actually really essential. It should be part of your strategy because it helps your audience understand your brand and your messaging, and you get known for something. So you have to repeat it if you want to get known for it anyway. So this really has got a double benefit. Now, my next tip is to think about delegating without losing your voice. Now, if you have a budget, delegating your social media content can naturally save a huge amount of time. But the catch here is that it's not just about just having something to post for the sake of posting something. That's not the point. We want that content to do well, especially if you're paying someone to do it. I mean, there you're spending your money, but your time's just as valuable. So you want your marketing to keep driving those results. So let me give you a few tips that I've used in the past to effectively delegate. Full transparency, I don't delegate my social media right now. I create all of my own. But a few years ago, I was doing it for my tuition business. So, one thing you can do is create a bit of a brand voice guide. So, literally, some adjectives that describe your tone and your style and the things that you want people to feel when they see your language, like what you're putting out there, even the colors. Also, list your core messages to whoever it is that you are targeting. Now, a little tip I'm going to give you, I did this with my very first VA and it worked really well, was I also went on Pinterest. So I created this schedule. I said on Mondays, it's going to be this kind of post, Wednesdays, this kind of post. And I went on Pinterest and I gathered loads of ideas in boards that were labeled according to the day, according to my timetable. And this was designed to just give her ideas and give her inspiration of the kind of things I liked. So when she coupled all of that together, it worked really well. Also, make sure you schedule regular check ins just to make sure that the content aligns with your vision. It feels like you. What my VA used to do was she would create 2 weeks worth of content on Canva. In the comments is where she'd write her captions. And every 2 weeks, I would spend 5-10 minutes just approving them. Over time, that got even faster. So whether you're outsourcing social media, whether you're using something like ChatGPT, staying true to your voice is really a non-negotiable. It has to sound like you and it has to represent you. And that leads me to my next tip, and that is using AI for social media. So I personally don't use AI for social media, but that's not because I don't like it or I don't think it's a good idea. It's just because I've kind of developed my own rhythm. I really enjoy writing, so I don't feel like I need it. It tends to influence me in a different direction and then I get really confused. So I like to stick to what I write. However, it's such a great tool, and especially if you can use it strategically. And the key here is to make sure it reflects you and that it writes in your voice. So make sure a really good idea, and I've experimented with all of this because I help a lot of my clients put things like this in place. A really good idea is to tell ChatGPT who they are meant to be. Who are they? Basically, who are you? And outline your post and specify the tone that you want. Train AI by feeding it examples of your past content. So something I did a while ago, and I was experimenting with this, was I asked my VA to, on a Google Docs, I asked her to copy and paste 50 of my past content, 50 posts. And I kind of uploaded that so that ChatGPT could see my style and the kind of things I talk about. So when you take the time, when you invest the time in really training ChatGPT or the like, I'm using that as an example, then it can really help. It makes a really big difference. Also, just to make sure that it doesn't drift, because sometimes they kind of, these AI platforms can override you a little bit and kind of go down their own style. Make sure that the outlining of a post is actually really important and telling it what you do want and what you don't want. And then, you can use that as a starting point and you can even change it around to add little nuances and things from your own personal experiences, for instance. So social media can be an incredible tool for growing your business. And it's not just to get sales and it's not just to get visible. Without it, I wouldn't have made friends, like people who I really consider really good friends of mine. I just wouldn't have met them without social media because we started off with a professional relationship and it developed into a personal one. I wouldn't have these businesses without social media, at least not in the way I did it. And even now, I wouldn't continue to attract as many clients as I might do if I didn't have it as a tool. And by focusing on the right platform, planning ahead, repurposing wisely, not just for the sake of it, and staying really true to your voice, being authentic, whether you are delegating or using AI. I know the word authentic is thrown around a lot, but it's an important word. So regardless of what you use, staying true to yourself, it means you can create a strategy that really works for you, that works for your business and doesn't have to take over. So thank you as always for staying with me. If you found this useful, please do leave a little review on Apple Podcasts and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You will hear from me on Wednesday.